the second line needs to do better after the last game. Did anything really stand out as to ways that they weren't? I mean, I know it was probably across the board to some degree, but specific things you want them to do better?
Well, I think one, they got to play as a unit of three and as a unit of five. And at times, they weren't executing the systems the way they have to execute the systems. I just think some of it might be chemistry. Some of it might just be playing better hockey. So we'll keep them together and see how they do.
How long do you experiment if they don't start producing?
I can't answer that question. I'll start with the first period tomorrow and we'll see. And I don't know how long for sure. I know we need more. I know we need that line to be better, and we probably need the Filppula line to be better. So, I think the other two lines have been pretty good, obviously. So we'll keep watching.
What's stopping you from putting Yevgeny in a game? Svechnikov, he's played one game in the last year.
Well, that would be one. That would be one.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? So like it's the National Hockey League. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him when he plays play great. That's what I'd love to see him. If I feel like either through injury or something that he gets his opportunity, I hope he plays great. But right now, there's other guys that if Nilsson's healthy, I think Nilsson's probably more prepared to play great. So
why not have him in GR then? It just seems to run contrary. I know you said you think he can handle it, but it runs Svechnikov.
We had to call somebody up, so we called him up. And if he's not going to play here, he'll go back to GR and play. So I don't know if that answers your question, but ultimately, if he's not going to play here, he won't be on the whole trip with us, so he'll go back to GR and play. So he's going to play somewhere. We'll see.
With Nilsson, then you have enough.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Do you view, and having gotten all these NHL practices in, as still sort of a step forward though in his development? Like
again, for me, it was one. It was a little bit of make sure we gave him a nod that he understands that he's headed in the right direction. Two. He has been through. Like I just think Steve thinks, Ryan Martin thinks that Ben Simon thinks that mentally he's at a spot where he can handle being up and not playing and getting sent back down. I'm not sure that's the case with all the other young players, and so he's mentally prepared for it. But it gets him up here, it gets him a chance for us to see him, it gets him a chance for him just to feel confident being up here, and whether he plays or doesn't play, I still think it can be a positive thing depending on how he looks at it. But we aren't going to have him here for a long time if he's not playing. We're going to get him back to GR playing.
With Nilsson, he looks like he's ready to go. Is he ready to go?
I'll let you know tomorrow.
And
Biega around for some time now. What have your impressions been having him in practice?
Competes hard, skates well. I'd love to see see him be able to practice even more, but you don't always have that kind of time. I think he's a guy that could move a puck well and manages his game well and can defend with his feet.
You've had Quinn Hughes at a couple of Worlds and just seen him overall. What makes him so effective?
One, he's a really competitive person. He's a really good. He's a really explosive skater. Those would be two things that stand out to me. Loves hockey, wants to compete, wants to be great. He's an elite skater. He can really explosive as anybody I've been around. We obviously have some with the NSCU and with Larkin, and it's a little different explosiveness. It's more in tight areas, but he's excellent on his edges. So I'm a big fan of Quinn Hughes. I think he's done a really good job so far from what I've seen, and I hope we make it real hard on him tomorrow, but I'm a big fan of Quinn Hughes.
I know at one of the Worlds he roomed with Dylan. Was that something you set up, or how?
Yeah, no, I set that up. Dylan's a really good mentor type person. Quinn was the youngest, and so that was 2 years ago. And so we had I just thought it was good to have somebody like Dylan to see how he prepares every day and trains every day, and also Dylan knows how to go out of his way to make people feel comfortable, and so I thought it was a good setup that way.
Philip Sedina had a goal Saturday. I don't know if you saw the clip of how the relief on his face. And what did he show you in camp, and what do you need to see more of him? It looked like he was close to that area and that goal, that box you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, Philip, it's just consistency and his impact on the game being really good. And I know I talked to Ben Simon; he thought both games he played really well, and it's just the impact on the game being as a positive on a night-to-night basis. I think from a scoring perspective, I think his give-and-go game has to keep getting better so that he's not trying to. It's going to be hard for him to self-create and work his way into that scoring square. So if he can give and go and get it back in those areas, then he can release his shot, and his shot's been real good throughout his career. And two would just be the competitiveness away from the puck. Make sure that he competes like crazy so he has the puck. It's an impossible league, this league, if you don't work really hard and compete to be a real effective player. So I think he's done a fairly good job of that, and it's just being more dangerous on a night-to-night basis by finding ways to get open in that scoring square.
Do you or somebody in the organization have a conversation with him to not get caught up in their guys drafted after him, around him, who make NHL players already, to not focus on that?
Yeah, I think all of us at different times. Certainly myself, Steve and his management team, Hork and his development group, and Ben Simon and his coaching group. There's lots of different people that have probably shared similar messages. This thing's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Some guys make their way to the NHL real fast and have a long-term great career. Some guys make their way fast and then all of a sudden they go backwards. And we certainly don't want any of our prospects to go backwards. So we want to make sure we're on the right development plan for them. But two, sometimes you put so much pressure on yourself, you just got to relax. And certainly he's somebody that can do that. And there's a lot of expectations, and just relax and play. And so I think he's got that message. Hopefully he can do that.
How much of all that applies to Cholowski? Where is he in his development?
Yeah, what about it? Sorry.
Where is he at in his development? I mean, we saw him a year ago. He seemed to have some poise for young players, making plays. I know the defensive side of the game is probably a challenge for him. Where's he at?
Growing.
Yeah.
He's growing. He's better today than he was at the end of last year. So I think that's a real tribute to him and the fact that he put tons of work in the summer, and he's stronger, and he's listened to the things that he has to get better at. One of the biggest challenges to getting better is if you're not willing to understand you have to get better. And I think when guys realize that, and they tend to grow at a much bigger rate. And I think he understands that the areas of the game defensively and kind of management of the game, knowing when to try to make a play and when to punt is part of it. It's a huge part of managing your game, and that comes with maturity lots of times. So I think it's his game management and his defensive game that still needs to improve, but I think it is improving. It wasn't as good last game as he had been the previous four, but he's going to get another chance tomorrow to go out and be real good.
Diego is almost like a mentor to the young guys. Once he gets comfortable, how can he help Dennis or even the other young D?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping, when he plays, if he's paired with a young D like a Dennis, that he can be a mentor-type player who would come back to the bench and can talk. And, Alex's been around a long time and has seen different situations, and he's had to work very hard for everything that he's gotten. And I think what's impressed me with Alex from afar is that when he was a young player in the American Hockey League, he didn't manage his game great, and over time he's really learned how to manage his game. When I watched him on tape prior to the trade, the one thing I would say is he knew when to try to make a play and when to rim it hard and when to put the puck into a safe area, and that's the thing that most young defensemen struggle with. He's had to learn it, so he can certainly pass that lesson on.
One more thing on Zadina. With young guys who have that much expectation on them, it kind of seems like they know what they can do, and you and their coaches kind of know what they're going to have to do. How does he respond to knowing that hey, we know you can do these kind of dangles and these finer skills, but we also need you to do stuff like that away from the puck stuff? How does he kind of respond to that feedback? Good,
but I don't think anybody's said to him, we don't want you to be offensive. We want him to be. In fact, when he came up last year, I said to him, I don't really, we'll worry about that. I want you to be dangerous offensively, and if that means you make a mistake defensively, I don't care. It was the end of the year. It was one of those situations. So, he's been encouraged to be as offensive as he can now. Probably a little different when he's down there, and they've got to teach him how to be a pro. But I think he's responded already. I think like anybody, when you haven't had the success you want, sometimes there's days where you're sick of being told things, and that's just the reality of it. And then there's other days where you kind of say, okay, you're right, and I got to get better. And I think those days when he looks in the mirror and says, these are the areas I got to get better at, I think the more he does that and the quicker he does that, the better he'll be. And I think he's doing that. I think he's done a pretty good job. He's a good kid, wants to be a good player.